When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Warning, creators of this game do understand the subject matter may be offensive to some, but they do honor the families and people that have been affected by these real-life tragedies that these individuals have caused. Want to play a game?
Oh, yeah!
Lover of true crime?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we got an interesting game for you to check out.
Wow.
With the mashup of influences such as horror movies, collecting cards, and RPGs.
What?
Led to giving birth to an incredible creation of this game, Killers, the card game.
You are all my children now.
This game is a collectible trading card game featuring some of the most infamous killers, with tidbits of trivia on the back of each card to help you learn some insight to each criminal.
Who the hell are you?
Let's not forget, during the game, cops will be chasing you and these criminals.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
However, check out their website listed through all social media today, which can be found under Killers, the card game.
Am I on the internet?
I want to play a game.
This is Rick Bakewell, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, the Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest has professionally been a cinematographer for several years, but now getting into the writing and directing side of things. He's got a project coming out early 2024 that's called Roswell Delirium. Writer, director, Richard Bakewell.
Doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, let's go into Roswell Delirium. So, where did this come from? Where we stand? What? Yeah, there's just some. Yeah, where does project come from? And yeah, talk about putting it together.
Sure. So I did this documentary years ago called Before I Die, as a cancer documentary with kids who are near the end and trying to do their bucket list. And there were a few kids in the documentary who were pretty severe with cancer. and their parents did everything they could to keep the kids alive, and one kid beat cancer 9 times. And I thought, this mother has done everything she can to keep this kid alive and gave him the best treatment, but it didn't work out and he passed away. And I was like, what would a parent do to keep their child alive? Would they even give them to aliens? And then that was just a crazy idea I had, and then I just started to run with the idea. And in a lot of my research and writing the story, I've talked to and interviewed a lot of people who had thought they'd been abducted by aliens and taken away to the spaceship over and over again. And you learn a lot of times that what really is happening is that's their way of coping with some of the trauma in their lives. So I just really started to kind of put this idea together about, well, what if we take the idea of this magical place where Area 51 used to be, and we call it Space Rock. And this is a place where you bring your loved ones who are dying to be given to the aliens. And, in the film, the idea is based about a mother and daughter who survived like a Soviet Union nuclear attack. There's like 12 dozen warheads that come through and try to wipe out the U.S. They survive, and there's radiation poisoning. And a little girl in the movie named Mayday Malone, she tries to contact all these aliens on ham radios and gets a couple distress calls and tries to track them down, and it keeps taking her to Space Rock, but then she keeps getting even sicker with the radiation, and her mom has to eventually bring her there to give to the aliens to save her because no one else can. And in the film, there's also this very clinical state to it where the therapist tries to help the older version of the child remember all the things that happened to her, good and bad. There's all these things happening, all these layers at the same time. So.
Well, with this, and forgive me if I misread, because we know everything online is true, but with this particular story, you turn back the clock, revisiting the 1980s from the perspective of the mother-daughter, like you said, and it's after a nuclear disaster of US and USSR nuclear attacks, give or take 1986.
Mm-hmm.
So how much history did you look into and research as far as when you're writing this fantasy drama as well?
Well, I did a lot of research, basically kind of going back with all of the times when the Soviets actually almost did deploy warheads, and kind of used that as a talking point in the story. There was this exercise called the Able Archer 83 drill, where the U.S. basically did a full-on evacuation of the president to see how long it would take to get him out of the country in case the Soviets did attack. And, it almost set off the Cold War from not being cold anymore. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened. There was other instances where the satellites moved and people and the USSR thought that the U.S. were sending in warheads, but it was actually just the sun moving off the satellites. There's all these things that I researched to kind of give it the credibility and and realism to the story, to set it up in the beginning. And then also, we reference a lot of things that were, real in the 80s and happening. We talk about, there's a moment where, the girl comes home and she realizes her el's got a broken nose. And they reference, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. There's all these real moments of history in the 80s. And it's kind of we started the night of Dallas. So even though Dallas, where JR got shot, was 1980, in the film it starts in 86, and then we see Dallas, and the little girl's watching him get shot, and that's how the film begins. And really to try to drive home the idea of the 80s and living it also in a world where things are very similar to the COVID pandemic, where you have all these things. People are having radiation poisoning. They have this Cold War cough, almost like the COVID flu. There's a lot of similarities, and it's people trying to survive through this time. But I did a lot of research, and just to make it feel real and credible, like this could have actually happened back in the 80s, even though it didn't.
Well, with that being said, what was it like working with several folks who would be considered icons of the 80s? Anthony Michael Hall, Dee Wallace, Reginald VelJohnson, Sam Jones, Lisa Welchel, excuse me, choking from a sandwich I just had. But what was it like working with some of these folks that people still clamor over to this day?
Well, I mean, for me, it was just like reliving my childhood. I mean, I grew up watching Flash Gordon on a Laserdisc. You know, I had it. I probably like watched it so much I started skipping because I loved that movie so much as a kid.
As much as Ted?
Yes, and as as much as you know he does in Ted, you know, with Mark Wahlberg, you know, who also I worked with, and not in this movie but other projects, and it was just very surreal because I remember like Sam was the first like '80s star that we attached, and you know I sent him the script, and the other producer Larissa talked to him and worked out everything, and you know he wanted to talk on the phone, and we talked for like an hour. And he just had all these ideas, and he, you know, he kind of like helped me change a couple of things in the story that I thought were going to work. But then he's like, you know, why would I care about this person if they do this? And I was like, that's a good point. I didn't think about that, you know, and he kind of helped me rework the script a little bit, not even realizing he was doing that. And just on set, always making jokes, always cracking up. You know, he loves working with the crew, and you know, whenever there was like a sound issue or something, he would just start talking and forget that, you know, we were filming. I'm like, Sam, let's get back to let's keep you in character, you know, and then he would just turn it on like that, you know, and you know, I mean, there's so many people, you know, Dee Wallace, we met at Starbucks, you know, for the first time after we got her all worked out for the movie, and you know, we're sitting there for 3 minutes, and then she sees a homeless person walk in and hands her like money for a sandwich. And I'm like,
that's deep for you.
Yeah, that people don't do that though. Like, there's only like people like Dee hardly exist anymore. And I'm like, wow, you just were so focused on this girl who looked, you know, like she was starving, and everybody else has looked away, and here you are just right in on her, and I'll be right back, and then hands her like $5. I'm like, wow, that's the kind of person that she is, you know. And you know, and you know, she was great, very serious. You know, her role is very emotionally demanding because, you know, she has a grandson in the film who's dying of the cough, trying to get him to space rock. And she has 2 very emotional scenes in the film, and this did a phenomenal job. And like, people watched it last week at the premiere and got people crying in the movie because it's so powerful. It's like, you know, I feel like we captured that ET essence with her again. You know, I feel really happy with her performance. And you know, Reggie was fun. He was not he was not written to be likable in the movie. The character he's playing was supposed to be like a villain, and a very just kind of like evil, bad, you know, almost like a Die Hard type villain, you know, Hans Gruber type. But then when we got Reggie, he kind of made the character more likable, and you know, like you just really love every second he's on screen. You know, he's so friendly, and you know, at the end, we played a joke with him where basically the little girl in the last take brings them Twinkies, you know, just to kind of mess with them a little bit, you know, that little Die Hard reference. And, you know, he couldn't stop laughing to that when he loved it. And you know, Lisa was, you know, phenomenal. Just, I mean, plays a teacher in the movie and has these long monologues, you know, and they go on. She's explaining about, you know, because in the 80s, there was an incident where, you know, the Soviets blew up the Korean airliner, you know, and Cal 007. And so we referenced that in the movie because now the Cold War's happened and it's no longer cold. You know, airplanes can't drift off course anymore. They have to be within 5 miles of their, you know, their destination at all times. They can't go off course. And she talks about that. I mean, she just has these long, like 2-3 minute speeches sometimes, and just, you know, spot on every time. And when I'm watching her, you know, and the monitor in the classroom, it's like, I'm just brought back to facts of life. It was just amazing to watch. You know, I just felt like I was back in the 80s, and, you know, Michael was Michael, and he was, you know, 100% of the time, just whatever we wanted, you know, he was there for. He's also a producer on the film, so he was there most days when we were filming. And then, you know, his scenes were a little more serious. So on those days, there wasn't a lot of fun because there's a lot of emotional elements to his scenes with the older version of the child actress Firefly. So we kind of kept the set very calm and quiet on those days, you know.
So, well, I'm sitting there looking in the background there, and over your shoulder, you got a alien head. Is that a mask? What is that going on there?
It's a little alien mask I brought to the premiere last week, so it like lights up and flickers and stuff, and a little joke thing I brought.
So, with the premiere happening, when are we expecting? Has a date been announced for the release? And how are we releasing this?
Well, right now, we've had the film has been completed for the last few months, and we kind of like delayed it because of strikes. Like, we don't want to burn the premiere. We wanted our celebrities to come out and our actors to really enjoy it and have a night to celebrate their hard work, and we've had like 13 companies reach out to basically take it and distribute it. And we're still entertaining offers, but we're probably going to wait until like after the new year to discuss when we're going to roll out release, because we're doing the festival run as well. So I'm probably thinking not until May of next year or so. That's kind of like our estimated release time. So,
well, that's a good, interesting point with it. Besides the festival run and all, which people enjoy, but you mentioned you had 13 different people wanting to possibly distribute, and I don't care about numbers per se, but what do people look at when you're talking about distribution deals and such when you have a project like this?
Well, a lot of times what they want is, there's a lot of what I've learned. There's a lot of different territories. So some people come along and they can only do like the U.S. territory. And we've had some who can do the international as a whole and then the domestic. And a lot of times, there are companies who just want you to take the deal, even though it's not that great. And then some of the deals we've gotten are pretty good, but I'm like, well, I think we should wait just to get the buzz going a little bit harder until next year, because the trailer's been seen over a few million times by all the people who've really, republished it again, and on Moviegasm and Collider and MovieWeb, like it's played a couple of million times. So there's definitely an interest in the film, and I'm looking for the best deal. So that way it's like, well, we can go on all these platforms and not just fade away in the back pages and people can't find us. Cause it's like, I want it to be a mainstream delivery where it's like, oh, well, it's one of the top 10 that you click on when you're scrolling through the streamer. It's like a lot of times you go on Netflix and things come out and no one knows it's even on Netflix and it gets lost right away. So I don't want that to happen. So that's something that's, we're trying to battle with too, is like make sure it has the right home for this film.
How about physical medium? Because obviously that's been a talk, and I'm a fan of physical medium myself.
Oh, behind me is a wall of about 300 DVDs, Blu-rays. I see your collection, and to me,
that's books.
Oh, books. I thought they were. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no, there's the. Yep, there you go.
There's the one cabinet full. So
nice. Okay.
I'm working on more, but yeah. So
yeah, for me, I'm a believer in having the hard copy. I hate like this. There's this new thing happening now where you have digital media that you paid for, and now they're saying, oh, guess what? Actually, we're getting rid of it. It's gone. Even though you paid $20 for that season, it's no longer available. Sorry. And there's nothing you can do about it. So I feel we will probably do a Blu-ray release on Amazon, maybe like even a Blu-ray DVD combo. Definitely so people can own and have it forever and it's theirs to keep. That's the goal. I don't know if we'll, it depends on the distributor. It will be in the stores, but it might just be on Amazon only for a while, and it might just work its way elsewhere. So we'll see how that all plays out. But definitely there'll be a physical format coming. So
awesome. So how much, like I said during introduction, that you done some cinematography. So how much did you have that hat on when writing, but also your boots on the ground working on the project, directing and everything else?
Well, for me, with writing it, having that cinematic eye helps me figure out how I want the shots to kind of evolve and how the camera should move, when we should push in, like maybe this is a shot where it's on Steadicam and should be moving. And maybe this is where the day we bring in a jib, we had a jib out there on the airplane crash site, I felt like it was very important when the girl gets abducted to really have this camera move a certain way as she's being taken up by the UFO. I really wanted all these, camera movements to give it that sense of the heightened sense of fear. And for me, I had this great DP named Carter Ross, who I met in the summer of 2022, and him and I just connected right away. And I knew I could just give him my shot list, give him all the time that we had, and say, this is what we want. Here's the shots. Here's what we're gonna do first. And then it's I didn't have to ever worry about the camera department. I could just focus on the actors and getting the rehearsals down and helping them with their performance where there was things that I didn't like where we would adjust, and so it was really helpful for me to have someone like him where I could just say, here's, take the reins, and I'm just gonna work with the actors and not even care about what's happening with the camera. So it's kind of nice for a change just to not be involved in that world.
So make sure you check out the film when it does come out streaming, Blu-ray, all that stuff. But I'm curious to know biggest influences for you to get into doing what you do.
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, there were plenty. My dad took me to see Star Wars. That was, I think, the first movie I remember seeing in the theater. And I was so mad at him because we walked in and it was we were early, so the end of the movie was on. So we saw the ending before the whole movie, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's ruined! I know what's happened," And then we stayed and watched the whole thing again. And movies like Star Wars, Back to the Future, E.T., Empire, all those classics just really helped shape this idea of that's what I want to do. So I knew by 5 or 6 that I wanted to make movies. There was no doubt about it. And with this film, when I was writing it, I was it didn't start off as an 80s movie, but it became an 80s movie. And I wanted to kind of recapture that feel and the love for the 80s that people used to have for their movies. That's why I had the star-studded cast from the 80s, because I want you to feel like you're watching an 80s film in the first half of the film, where there's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of things that people will pick up with references. But then also it gets very serious towards the end and becomes more of a dramatic film at the second half. And I tell people it's kind of the movie feels like Close Encounters meets Terms of Endearment. There's two elements. There's the joy, and there's some funny parts, nothing over the top, but then it gets very dark and serious, and then it takes a twist. But to me it feels like you're watching an 80s movie. Everyone, when I was watching them in the theater, they felt very warm and happy inside. You could just see them smiling, and then that's the joy that I got, watching them just loving every second of their of their work.
So final question, what's next after we get through the holidays?
Well, after what's next is we have some more screenings coming up of the film, and in Arizona and California. I think we're back at the Mann's Chinese Theater in February for another showing. And we're just going to keep promoting the film, doing the pre-promotion before we sign with the distributor, shop it around, keep looking, and then also working on a new script, kind of like a Roswell spinoff, following a different storyline of that universe, but not with a lot of the same characters. But a couple of the old characters come back in this one, but it's a different storyline, more a survival Walking Dead style.
And where can people find information on the screenings or the different conventions it might be at, and finally when things up and rolling distribution-wise?
Sure. There's 2 places they can go. They can go to our website, lightforcepictures.com, and there's a section for Roswell Delirium on there. They can just click on that, and it has all the latest news and stuff. And there's also, they can go to Instagram or Facebook and look up Roswell Delirium, and it'll just tell everyone all the important information coming out, any of the screenings, festivals we're in, any of the awards we won, any potential news. They can go Instagram or Facebook and just look us up and find everything they need right there.
As I was writing down that website, and yes, people, it's actually pen and paper I'm using, surprisingly. Not a tablet. So, Mr. Bakewell, thank you so much for the time. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies, enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
Hi, this is Adrienne Barbeau, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.